Alright, welcome to the next video. We are on a 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte again, and we are in Horizon Forbidden West. And right now we're on the 1080p setting, and we have the following settings locked in. So we've got the display on 1080p, of course, no upscaling, no frame generation, just regular TAA, and then all of our graphics have been set to the very low preset. So everything here is basically bottomed out as low as it can go at 1080p. Alright, so let's just take a little stroll here through this terrain that looks pretty bad. It honestly looks like oil painting, not necessarily real rocks and vegetation and whatnot. But you know, this is just to kind of get an idea where we're starting at. So 169 FPS, and this is just 1:1 pixels, no upscaling, nothing like that. Alright, so on 1080p, it's pretty safe to say we're going to get a pretty good result. Let's jump into the next setting of low, I believe. Alright, so let's go to low, and we're at 170 FPS, but again, the textures are still pretty rough. Everything looks a bit muddy. You know, I'm being pretty kind when I say a bit muddy. It actually looks pretty bad. All these textures look like they're the textures that pop up before the real texture loads. That's kind of what it looks like all the time everywhere. Alright, so we're just going to keep going up here, and we're going to go to the very next preset, which is medium, and that's when things start to look a little bit better as far as the preset for the textures go. Things look a little bit more realistic, I'll put it that way. Alright, so 140 FPS, you know, we're going to have a pretty good experience at 1080p. If you're buying this card for 1080p, you know, you're fine. There's nothing to really think about beyond that. You're going to be able to play most things, no problem. Alright, so 134, 135, 150 even. Alright, so let's just keep going over here. Let's go up to the next preset, and I'm just going to go into the graphics settings, go to high. And this is the high setting, 106, 105. So everything looks nice and what you would expect from a more recent title like this. And it's running just flawlessly, perfectly fine. I do want to note that on these settings, now we are at native, but you know, I don't really like the upscale at 1080p. I think that it degrades pretty quickly. So you know, just take this into consideration that they do have an 8 gigabyte model of this card. This is the 16, and we're already at that allocated 8 gigabytes. So you know, just pay attention to that VRAM, especially at 1080p, because we're going to need more than 8. Alright, so let's just run through here and go on to the next one, which is very high. As you can see, we are over 8 gigabytes. We're 8.5. Now this is no upscaling, but again, I don't really like to upscale when I'm at 1080. It just really starts to fall apart. Things start looking a bit chewed up pretty quick. Alright, so let's just run through here. Head up this hill. I believe there's some more scenery over here to give you guys a little bit something, a little bit more to look at besides just the same thing over and over. Alright, we're just going to head up this hill. And I believe that's going to do it as far as the native settings go. Yeah, because the next one is very low. So very high is the highest. Alright, I'm going to kick over here and just turn on some DLSS. We're going to go with quality, of course. I probably wouldn't recommend going anywhere near DLSS unless it's just quality. Alright, and that's going to give us still a result that is over that VRAM buffer. So yeah, you're still looking at using more VRAM than you have if you've got the 8 gigabyte model. I just want to make sure that I definitely applied that because the numbers didn't move too much. Yeah. Alright, so that's it. Alright, so that was kind of the rundown of what I wanted to do as far as 1080p goes. We'll do some frame generation, but I will say that it really wants you to use AMD's version, because if you go to frame generation here, it turns off the dynamic stuff up here. So just keep that in mind. We'll go ahead and do the frame generation with DLSS for now, but it really wants you to use that AMD version for some reason. Now our VRAM went up considerably. We're at 9.8, and that's just because we are generating frames, and that directly correlates to your VRAM usage. Everything else is, you know, like DLSS helps your VRAM, but the frame generation is going to eat some of that VRAM back up to do its thing, to do what it needs to do. Alright, so I'm just going to leave it on these settings, and then go up this hill, and then we're going to switch it over to 1440, which is kind of where I feel like this card shines at for the most part with this card. All right, so we're at 10.2 gigabytes of allocation at 1080p quality. All right, so let's just go ahead and flip over, and we're going to go to the next preset of 1440. Let's kick that on. All right, so then we're going to lower this back down to the very low setting, and we're going to make sure that all of our upscaling is off. TAA, no frame generation. Off. TAA. Okay, so everything looks good there. We're still on 1440. Nope, we need to go up one more. There we go. So that's 2560 by 1440. I'm glad I caught that. All right, so graphics very low, 1440p, and TAA, no frame generation. Got it. Let's lock that in. All right, so our textures are back to looking quite terrible on the very low setting. To be expected. All right, so we're not going to spend time just like running around looking like horrible graphics all the time. So we're just going to go up here and then going to kick on the next preset. All right, so let's just do that. We're going to go over here and the very next preset, which is low, which still looks pretty bad. Again, 1440, no upscaling, and no frame gen right now. Just head down here. I'm trying to avoid any sort of confrontations because I just want to get through the test and not make this video super long. Alright, so we're at 112 FPS here, 114. VRAM allocation is 7.3 on low, not very low, but low. So it's still pretty bad looking. Alright, let's go on to the next preset. Over here, and we're going to go to the medium preset, and this is where things start to look a little bit better. Got the VRAM allocation at 7.6 with 89 FPS. So you know, this can do 1440 medium, no problem, without upscaling anything. And you can go down to like balanced maybe on DLSS 4 with 1440 without showing a lot of degradation. All right, so let's just keep going here. Performance also looks good, but it really only looks good to me on 4K. So we'll get to that setting in a minute. I've also got chapter markers set up. If you need to skip ahead, that's fine. All right, so let's just go in here and go to the next preset, which would be high. Okay, and we're at 85, 82 FPS. Still a nice experience. Well over 8 gigs though. I mean, you know, I just can't say it enough. Like, just make sure you get the 16 gig card, not the 8 gig card of the 5060 Ti. I don't even know why they made the 8 gig, to be honest. It makes no sense to me, but they did. Alright. So at 76, 8.2 gigs of allocation. Alright, let's run over here. And let's jump over to the very high preset. And then we'll get into DLSS and all that fun stuff. So you're still over 60 without upscaling anything with no frame gen. 8.7 gigs of allocation though. Let's go check out this dude run around his little campfire. And there's a critter over there. I want to avoid him right now. Let's just go back up here to this little section. Okay, so 70 FPS. We're at 9.4 gigs of allocation up this little area here. Trying to get some more stuff to load in, that way we can get some numbers to jump around. Alright, so 9.1. Yeah, pretty good experience on very high 1440. Let's go ahead and turn on some DLSS though, just to see what it does, how high we can get it. Alright, so let's kick on, let's go DLAA, upscale method DLSS, quality, no frame gen. We are still on 1440. Apply those changes, yes. And we're still on the very high preset. Okay, so 95 FPS, 9.8 gigs of allocation. So even with DLSS, you're still going to need more than 8. Alright, so 86, 87, looking pretty nice throughout here. Okay, let's just go on to the next level of DLSS here. Whoops, down here they got these, every game is different locations. I wish they would standardize it somewhat. Alright, so here we go to balanced. So this is balanced, 1440, no frame gen yet. Okay. Trying to just remain in like an open area, because if you go in like the smaller caves and corridors and stuff, it actually has less to render, so it makes it easier on the GPU, which I just kind of want to make sure we're not going somewhere that's like a cakewalk, you know. I want like more of the real world open level kind of stuff. Alright, so let's just run over here and let's go to the next preset. Again, I'm just probably going to go down to that performance, because after performance at 1440 it starts to look pretty bad. And there's no real reason to. I mean, we're getting some really nice frames here. 10 gigs of allocated VRAM though. You know, so VRAM is more important than ever. I'm stuck in a tree. There we go. Alright, I'm out. Okay, I'm trying not to fall off this cliff and die right now. Okay. Take a look over here.
Making good use of this.
Let's avoid these guys. It's going to give us a float down here. Alright, so let's kick on some frame gen. So we're at 1440. We're on performance. We're going to go to frame generation, DLSS frame generation. Apply that. So everything looks good. Nothing got kicked around. Still on very high. Alright, and that's going to do 110, 112. The VRAM got eaten up by about a gig to do that. So that's what it's going to take. Around 11 gigs of allocated VRAM right now. This game is just so pretty. I mean, just look at that. I always just, you know, sometimes I'm just mesmerized at how pretty this game can look. That sunset is so nice. Alright, so anyway, let's kick it over to 4K, which is where this game is going to look the best. In my opinion, it just looks so much sharper and nicer. Alright, so let's go to 4K, apply that. Yep, let's keep it. And we're going to make sure that all this stuff is back to just the TAA model. Okay, there we go. Anti-aliasing TAA, no frame generation. Man, everything gets kicked around. Okay, no, TAA, no, and no. Alright. And we are at 4K. Apply that. And let's go back to the very low setting. Alright, so we're on very low. No upscaling. No frame gen. So yeah, we are just looking at 60 FPS right here. And this is a pretty demanding game for 4K for this card, but you'll see later on that DLSS really probably, you know, saves the day in my opinion here, because it just makes everything so much smoother. Alright, I'm going to avoid those things. Just want to go over here and have a peaceful test. Alright, let's just go on to the next preset, which is low. I really don't want that guy to attack, or that freaking bird thing to attack me right now. Alright, let's just go over here. So we're at 56 FPS, 8 gigs of allocation on the VRAM. Again, this is 4K, so this card is not really intended for 4K, but I just want to kind of show you that you can get away with it if you really want to. Yeah, check out over here. Okay, we're now in our normal little test area. Let's kick up to the next setting, which would be medium. Alright, in medium, we got 49 FPS. We're at 8.6 gigs of allocation. And, you know, it's starting to look a little smeary. The frame rate's not keeping up in some places. Alright. You can get around 60 here and there, but like once you look out here and get some stuff to load in, it starts to dip below, even into the 40s at one point. Alright, so let's just keep going up just to see how bad it can be. Alright, let's see. Gonna go up too high. I will say that this game does run pretty damn well though. 44, 43 FPS, 41. Just gonna run over here again. Hopefully I don't get attacked by anything. 38, 40. Okay. 44, 45, 46. Okay, yeah. Let's just keep going up then. around 9.1 gigs of allocation on that setting. Alright, let's go to very high. So this is going to be the hardest for it right now because we don't have any upscaling and no frame gen. So you're looking at it 1-to-1 native TAA, anti-aliasing, and then you know, we're at 41, 45 FPS on the very high preset. So I just want to run over here, and then once we kind of get, we'll go to this other area to complete the 4K segment of this test. Just going to run up here and kick on some DLSS and see what we can make happen that way. It will improve considerably when it comes to the DLSS stuff that we can tie in here. I love doing this, like Breath of the Wild. Alright, 38. Alright, so here we go. Alright, we're going to go over to the graphics setting, double check. We're on very high preset. And let's go to the display. We're on 4K still. Nothing changes there. We're going to turn on the, not that, we're going to turn on the DLAA. We're going to upscale with DLSS quality. Alright, let's apply that. And let's see, that gives us up to near 60, so we're almost to 60. So you could frame gen from this. I mean, this is a slower paced action game, you know, not a first person shooter or anything like that. So really you could definitely generate frames from this and have a pretty good experience, I think. Alright, so we might look at that at the very end. Alright, so let's just go on to the next setting, the next DLSS setting, which would be balanced. So we're going to bring in the balanced preset. Always go the wrong way. Okay, balanced preset. I did not do that correctly. Let's try it again. Balanced preset. Apply. Yes. Alright. Now we're on balanced preset 4K. 71, 73, 75 FPS. So yeah, this is a really nice way to play it. We got 11.3 on our allocation, so we got plenty of VRAM left over to generate frames from. So you can kind of see where this is going. It's going to be pretty nice for what I consider today's entry-level card. You know, it's a pretty new game, really, to be running this well on an entry-level card. It's kind of nice. Alright, so 65 FPS, and I can tell you right now, DLSS is just, I mean, it is just good stuff. I mean, there's just nothing really compares to it to me. Everything looks super sharp still. Nothing looks like smeary or grainy or anything. All the motion and everything that I'm doing is, everything's holding up very well. All the edge detail is nice. You're not getting like any flickering or anything like that. It's just the upscaling to 4K is good. Really good. Alright, let's just come over here and we're going to go to the next DLSS preset, and then we're going to kick on some frame generation. So we're going to come down here and kick on the performance preset, and this still looks really darn good. You're upscaling from 1080p here, so everything's still nice and sharp, looks really good, and you're getting some really nice frames. 11.5 on the allocated VRAM, and in the low 70s as far as your raw, you know, frames per second go, because we're not generating frames right now. We're just upscaling. Okay, so let's just run over here and let's check out what some frame generation can do. Kick on the DLSS frame generation, performance. Everything looks good here. Let's gonna kick this over, keep it clean, go back to quality. So this will be quality DLSS with frame generation enabled on very high, and you're gonna get some really good results here. 71 FPS. Now these older titles, I believe this is still on DLSS 3. You know, it's not taking full advantage of that DLSS 4 technology right now, but it still looks really good, and you know, I really like the way that this game plays and the way that it handles its resource management. Just float down.
All right. I have to remove the power cell before.
All right, so let's go frame gen on balanced. Check out what that does. We're going to frame gen balanced. apply that. Yes. Alright, so this is frame gen balanced, and we are getting close to 80. Right at 80, just touching 80 FPS here. Okay. And then we're going to kick it over to performance, and then I'll probably just kind of give like a last little word on how I would play it. Alright. All this stuff looks so much more detailed in 4K. It really does make a big difference. I know some people don't agree with me, but 4K just looks so nice. Alright, so yeah, let's go over to the next setting, which is balanced, and then we're going to wrap it up, or performance I mean. So we were on balance, now we're on performance. So this is performance DLSS with frame generation, and you're looking at 86 FPS, 90 FPS here on 4K. So this is going to be, you know, perfectly playable at all the different resolutions. How I would probably recommend playing it, if I just had to like sit down and personally set it up myself, I would probably go to I would play at 4K, of course, and I would probably go to quality, and let's just see, just as a refresher, what that does. So quality DLSS gets me 65 FPS. I would play just like this. I wouldn't frame generate, I wouldn't do anything but just run 4K and then kick it on quality, and then use that very high preset. Because I mean, you're at 60. This game doesn't need to have like 80, 90 stable FPS. Like anything at or near 60 is going to be perfectly normal and perfectly playable. You just get like all that nice detail of DLSS quality without the, you know, the caveats that kind of come with going harder and harder on your DLSS. So yeah, this will probably just wrap it up. If you like this kind of content, you know, please subscribe. Thanks for sticking around. The watch time helps me out a lot. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you want to help me out with that, that would be amazing. So we'll see you in the very next video. Thank you.